Welcome to If These Pages Could Talk. We have a wonderful treat for you today. We're celebrating something special, and we have another editor-author combo for you and some technical difficulties, so bear with us as we figure these things out. But I am your host, Kiersten Marcil, author and adventurer into history. I'm here with my co-host,
Sevannah, storm romance author. I'm the dark window.
You're always kind of dark, though.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. We are here we'll start with our editor.
Oh, am I supposed to say something?
That's you. Want to introduce yourself?
I'm Renee Wildes. I am one of the editors at Champagne Book Group, and Carole is one of my authors.
And so now, Carole, tell us about yourself.
Well, I am the author of Boulevard of Bad Spells and Broken Dreams and book 1, Void of Course. And as Renee said, she is my editor who helped get this book. And its book birthday is May 28th. So I'm very excited to be celebrating a year since the book was published. I still can't believe it's been a year, but it has. And it's done well. It's got some good reviews, and I'm working on the second book now.
Yay!
So, but as we'll talk about later, the research for this book is so difficult, and because I have to really immerse myself in a world where I really am comfortable walking in the world, because it's where I work and it's sort of, I'm used to it, but I'm entering some cultural, sort of crossing cultures. And only the fact that I've worked in this environment for a really long time as people allow me entree to it. But Santeria is a very risky practice if you don't know what you're doing, or you enter into it with malintent. And I have to be very careful and very respectful. And it's just, it can be dangerous. So it's a very thing to have to deal with as I'm doing research.
Wow. Okay. Lots of cool stuff for us to talk about. Very nice. I do want to, as an icebreaker, as you said, it's your book's birthday right around when we're filming this. And I did bring to help celebrate a happy birthday decoration for you. And so we were all asked, I don't know if this is able to work out because of all of our tech, everyone to bring a dessert that they could show. Did everybody get to do that?
Oh, I got
That's okay.
A sweet, like over the top coffee.
There you go.
Okay, then mine counts.
At 8 o'clock in the morning. All I could muster, but I needed it.
I have hazelnut mocha coffee.
Okay, all right.
That's awesome. Yeah,
That's
it's
my
really
dessert.
early here too. Like if it was later in the day, I'd be doing like dairy-free brownies. So I don't have a lot left. I brought vegan marshmallows because I'll do these for dessert. Sometimes I'll just pop marshmallows. And unfortunately, we can't see Sev, but Sev brought something. What did you bring?
Well, I didn't really bring it because
Okay.
my daughter decided it's now time to bake cookies. So she's been making me my favorite, which is plain vanilla cherry cookies. And I'm not supposed to be eating them, but as a mother, one must suffer.
Yeah. You have to
So
test out with your kids.
Yeah, I've had.
Gotta suffer with cookies, Savannah.
I've had the coconuts. I've had the cherries. They're very sweet. And I still have to have the choc chip, but that's going to come. And I'm currently eating my actual chocolate, which is Canderel 0% added sugar magic bubble. Because it's not 8 a.m.
So good.
It's 11 minutes past 3 p.m. So I think
Ah.
I can have.
You are totally allowed to indulge,
Yep.
especially after everything we've been trying to do to get started,
Yeah.
etc. So for everybody, what is a favorite birthday celebration or tradition in your life? Something you've done, something you do? You want to
Well,
go first? Yeah.
yeah, for us, when we were growing up, birthdays were a really big deal. We used to have a kids' birthday party for friends,
Yeah.
and we would have a big family party, typically on a Sunday
Yeah.
birthday. Or I was born like Labor Day, so a lot of times it was done on Labor Day,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
um, which is September for those who aren't from the United States. And um, and then we would have just the immediate family on the actual birthday. So
Yeah.
it was sort of a week-long celebration. And then when I was dating someone, his mother used to have birthdays for everyone. So I'd get another birthday,
Oh, cool.
like a birthday week. So that was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Nowadays, you know, I'm lucky I get a cake, but that's okay because as you don't want to really eat them anyway. So
Right. Do you have plans for your book's birthday?
yes, I've been doing a lot of interviews. They're not all coming out right now, but a lot of online publications, and they're doing features and things like that. So yeah, it's more of a Halloween book.
Mhm.
It's a little dark.
It's very quite dark. Yeah, it's very, very much into it. So, if it, I could potentially do something for Halloween, like really, I have this like cool dress I could get, dressed up and walk around in the streets, and people would probably not even pay any attention to me because this is New York.
Yeah. Awesome. Renee, how about you? Do you have a favorite birthday tradition?
We have a local restaurant here called 2510 that if you have to bring your driver's license in to show it's your birthday, but they do a special where however many years you are, that's the percentage you get off your dinner.
Wow.
And then there's
Awesome.
a wheel of prizes that you get to spin, and it's free coupons or free food or this kind of stuff. So every year I get older, and every year I go in and I get a fancier and fancier dinner.
Yeah, that definitely makes getting older sweeter.
It's fun. Yeah, a lot of people do that. You can hear the wheels spinning all over the restaurant because I think pretty much everybody in town does this.
Oh my gosh, that's cool. Oh, Steph, do you have one?
We don't really celebrate, so it's no really big gifts or anything. Like my 30th passed without fanfare, my 40th, and I suspect my 50th as well. But what we do is we take the whole family out to a very expensive restaurant.
Yeah.
Very, so gourmet, you name it. And
Hmm.
I think we're probably going to go to Cream this year. Oh, it's just to die for.
Yeah.
We went to a place
Awesome.
called Geet for my husband's. It was Indian food. The menu was so long. There was just so many choices. We didn't know what to choose, but the food was amazing. Just saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
cool.
that was one highlight of May.
There you go. You gotta
That
have
was where
something.
you all order something different and just pass it around.
Yes, that's what we did.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
That used to be before COVID. What I would do for my birthday is we'd go to an Indian restaurant, invite out, just the family and then the special friend and his wife. And we would do Indian food and pass it around, like Renee said. So awesome. All right. So Carole, tell us about Void of Course.
So the book was born literally when I was driving to work one day, and I was stuck in this huge traffic jam because there was a double park Coca-Cola, a whole bastion of double park Coca-Cola. And it was just such a Bronx, New York scene, like, people trying to navigate through the cars, mommies with their little kids headed for the school bus, and just such a vibrant and aggravating, but when I stopped to look at the neighborhood, which is quite a integrated but still very marginal neighborhood in terms of, there's a lot of drug dealing and a lot of prostitution, and it's just not necessarily a safe place to be. Whenever you hear about problem in the Bronx, that was the neighborhood that it was happening in, and it's still happening in. And like I said, I was just on my way to work, and I was just observing this, and I got to work, and I just wrote down all of what I had just experienced, and as thinking, like, what if I just arrived in New York and I drove down this street, what would I be thinking? And I don't really know. That's the way most of my stories start. I just get this real life thing that happens to me, and it just takes off from there. And I developed this character, Tina, and just sort of kind of put her in a situation where she was returning to the Bronx from Puerto Rico, where she'd been taken after her family was killed in an arson fire when she was very, very young. And she's returning because the people who set the fire, the identities were unknown, and she felt like it was time for her to try to find out who killed her family. And she is a witch, but she's a novice witch. She's not very well experienced, and she's been warned that this is very dangerous. She's dealing with drug dealers, and the interesting thing about the book is that they're all mystical creatures. Like, there's werewolves, and there's Dhampirs, and they're gangs, and they're rivals, but they sometimes, join together to fight off other people. So it becomes a little bit of a supernatural intrigue, a little bit of suspense. And the Santeria is something a bit about working with families in the Bronx, how they have their altars in their house, and what their spiritual practices are. And, they share things with me, and I became very interested in the practice. Not that I wanted to become Santeria. I just wanted to find out, they use herbs, they do a lot of things, especially around during health, illness or visits to hospitals. And I had a very good friend that practiced, and she agreed to take me to a botanica and introduce me to a Santeria, who was very nice, and she was not trying to indoctrinate me into the practice, but she agreed to do a reading, what they call it, a registro. And she nailed just about everything that was going on in my life just by reading cards and talking to me. And she prepared me all of these potions, these leaves and stones and all kinds of things. And she gave me all these instructions of what I had to do. And I had to cleanse my house with this one liquid from the top down, throw the mop out, get another one, then rinse it with this liquid from the top down. And I had to put a coconut under my son's bed to draw away the mal aire that was causing him to, act out. And I had to do this and that and the other thing. So I did all this. My husband came home from work, and he's like, "What's that smell?" And I was like, "What smell?" And I didn't dare tell him. I just didn't dare. And but I had these candles. I had to burn these candles and put these little prayer cards everywhere and do everything. And I did it. And I said, you know, I mean, and eventually everything she told me worked. There
Wow.
was some asked me to do that I didn't, you know, like put stuff in my son's drinks, like to you know, and I said, no, I really think that's going a little bit too far. I'm not gonna, you know, put these, I don't know what I'm giving him.
Right, right.
I didn't do that. And yeah, my daughter picked up on it right away. She was like, oh, she was all interested in the candles and stuff. And for some reason she was more, and she was pretty young, but she was really interested in it. And I said, well, you know, it's just, we're just going to burn peace candles. We used to call them peace candles.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was that. And I have a very funny story about, you know, about 5 years later, my son was moving out, he's going to college, and he found the coconut under his bed. And he said, Ma, there's this coconut under my bed. Where do you think that came from? And it's like, I don't know, Adam. I said, for goodness sake, you know, maybe you came home drunk one night with a coconut. I didn't dare.
Oh, wow.
That's adventure, but I felt like I had to like really immerse myself in it. I was going to write about it. I
Yeah.
had to experience it. And one of the other things that was really interesting to me, and I've learned this a lot, you know, magic has kickbacks, good and bad. And if you sometimes do something, there are sometimes unintended consequences from it. And there were a couple of things, nothing really terrible that happened, but I felt like, yeah, you know, you're trying to fix one problem, but you kind of like deceive people and, you know, didn't tell them that you were, you know, cleansing the house with these elixirs and things like that. And, you know, things that happened. And I said, I wonder if that was a little bit of a kick in the butt, you know, because you know, you meddled.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow. So I do want to point out that you received an author shout recommended read for 2023. Congratulations.
Excited about that. Yeah, I was I think it was one of the first reviews actually that came out of the book. And yeah, I was really excited. But I think it's very different. You don't see a lot of books with this practice in it for very, it's a lot. And the practitioners aren't particular, they don't really talk about it very much. It's you know, it's their practice, and it's not something that they, you know, they do write books, but it's more for practitioners, for other practitioners.
That's one of the things I was really excited when Cassie assigned me this book, is it was so unique and I'd never heard of half the stuff in it. So I was just like, ooh, I always like learning something new and a new way of looking at things. So it was very cool.
What kind of back and forth did you have then, Renee, in terms of learning from Carole, what it was that was in the book?
A lot of back and forth emails and questions, and some of the stuff that I asked her about, she's like, nope, this is normal. This is what they do. Cause I tried to do the research, but a lot of it was so new to me. I totally let her run with it. She was the expert. This was her baby. So I learned a lot.
That's so cool. Well, since we dipped into it, Renee, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you usually work with an author, and then you know, where some of those differences came in, if there's others.
Usually we get an intro email, and then we go back and forth, and I get a feel for, you know, who Carole is and what the book is. Then I do an initial read through just to see what I'm getting into before I ever start editing. Because I've gotten caught where I'll ask a question at the beginning of the book, and then I get like halfway into the book and my question gets answered, and then I had to go back and remove my question. So I'm like, forget it. From now on, I'm just going to read the whole thing and see what it is. I bugged her a lot about the Dhampirs, because that was a new culture to me, I kept asking her about origin stories and where they came from and everything, and probably drove her quite mad. Because I'm all about cultures and societies and stuff like that. So anytime I get new stuff like that, and there's all these culture clashes and, like she said, gangs and, you know, competitions, and sometimes they work together and then all of a sudden they're enemies again. I always have questions.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of times when she would just come back and go, it just is. Never did find out where the Dhampirs come from. Because she said they're vampires and humans, and I'm like, well, how does that work? You know, I kept wanting to, she's like, it's not a part of the story. Let's focus on the story. And here's me going, but. So yeah, I probably drove her nuts, but it is a really, really cool, unique, and yes, very dark book.
Very dark.
Awesome. I love urban fantasy, so it's like my favorite genre to read, surprisingly. So this is very exciting.
Yeah.
Because I saw that the spelling is not traditional American fantasy vampire with a V. Is there tell us what the difference is, Carole?
Dhampirs are, and this is mythology that I've been reading from somebody else.
Yeah.
They are part human, part vampire. They can be out in the sunlight. They have difficulty in light if it's too bright. So they tend to work in the dusk, but they can go about normal activities during the day. And they have some tie to remaining human, perhaps. In the case of the villain, Raoul, his mother was killed during his initiation because she was trying to protect him. And this is something that binds him to being human as opposed to just a creature of the night. And vampires tend to have some connection to the living that keep them grounded in some human form, as opposed to a vampire who just sort of can only function in a certain environment. And you see that with werewolves. They can't work during, they're hiding during the day. They're in the shadows. They come out at night. The Dhampirs kind of, they walk around in gangs and make mischief in the daytime.
Cool. And how do the Fae fit in?
I had an experience when I was a different time where I was walking home from I was actually walking home from a park, and it was dusk, and I looked out over this it's a park. It's a urban park, but very grassy with lots of trees and very dense. And all of the fireflies were flying around in this meadow. It looked like little fairy lights.
Yeah.
And, fairy flies. That's what I started to call them. And I've actually written about fairy flies. I have other stories about fairy flies. So that sort of made me think of mystical creatures that kind of come out at night. And pigeons always filled like a big part of my life because my father raised pigeons and I got really into raising pigeons.
Cool.
Pigeons, I think they're funny birds. They can be very affectionate, believe it or not. Once they get to know you, they're very loyal. They come home all the time. And so I kind of, had this image of the fairy flies that I wanted to run in, but I thought it was fun that if you have an urban fairy and it shapeshifts into pigeons and their leader is the red-tailed hawk. I don't know if you're not from New York, you know about this this red-tailed hawk that used to live in the Dakota apartment building. They called him Pale Mail.
Oh.
and they were trying, the building owners were trying to get rid of pale mail because, you know, they poop all over the Dakota, which is, you know, a really fancy building. And every building, and it's all movie stars in the building, of course, said, no, leave the birds alone. Let the red-tailed hawks nest in the building. That's cool. And everybody had their cameras on them and everything like that. And I said, has to be the fairy king because he's so beautiful. And he has this little common pigeon that's you know, sort of leads all the other fae into battle at the end. So that was just kind of, that popped in. I don't know where this stuff comes from sometimes, but
they were very fun.
Yeah, they are very fun. They're very funny. They have, you know, there's sort of a lot of, you know, New York jokes cracked, you know, from the fairies.
They were just little pops of light in this dark story that just kind of lightened the mood and made you laugh. And yeah.
Cool. Carole, I understand you have a piece of your book to read to us.
I do.
Can we hear it?
Sure.
And
okay.
What do we? Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, and let us know what we need to know going into it, please.
This is one of Taina's first, or maybe her second visit to Santeria, who supposedly knew her mother before she died, and actually knows pretty much everything. And Josefa is sort of a godmother type person to Arnaldo, who's the hero really, but he's got a troubled life as well. And so she's just getting, you know, everybody keeps sending her to Josefa. You're going to go see Josefa. You're going to see Josefa. And she's going to, you know, help you with all your potions and fix all your problems and help you along the way. And she also knows Arnaldo and knows his story. And so she's sort of like the, you know, some guidepost for her. And during a ritual in the park, which is actually a real park with this gigantic rock and a rock formation in it, and it's called Rich Rock. That's what I call it. And that's where there's each supernatural creature has their own section of the park, but you have to kind of cross through it if you're walking. So you have to stay out of certain areas of the park. So one day, Taina met a woman from West Africa who is named Yoruba, and they had some pleasantries. They exchanged some pleasantries. So at this point in time, they are meeting up, all three of them, in the same place. So here we go. Josefa shuffled in and nodded to the two women. She held a small brown bottle and a 7-day candle with the same arrow-headed black and red icon stenciled on the front. How can I help you, Senora? I need these, please, madame. Yoruba handed her a list. Josefa read it and raised her eyebrows. Un momento. Let me pack up Taina's things. She cackled. Don't want to mix any of these in by mistake. There was no coincidence the three of them had come here today. Synchronicity was a sign from the goddess to proceed. Josefa, I met Yoruba near Ritual Rock a few weeks ago. That park is a magnet for those craving filth and depraved orgies. Josefa's dislike of public displays and of magic was embedded deep. There is great power there if one knows how to control it. Yoruba's teeth gleamed. Josefa always ignored what she didn't want to hear. She dropped a ball encrusted with black and red beads into Taina's left hand, then fixed an azabache bracelet dangling a red fist onto the right. This will quell the jealousy, that mal de ojo de those men. The minute Josefa's hands left hers, a stabbing pain took the left side of Taina's neck. She dropped Elugia's makuto. Josefa packed the candle, the potion, and the beaded ball into a brown bag. $30 for the reading and supplies. Tana's fingers still tingled and she had trouble grasping the bills in her wallet. Thank you. She pulled on the door. It didn't open. She tugged again with her entire weight, but it refused to budge, trapping her in a hive of dark magic. Panic ricocheted between her shoulders like ping pong balls. While Josefa was stowing the cash in the drawer, Yoruba pulled the door open with no effort and whispered in Tana's ears, I saw you in the park with your man, making love and magic in the rain. Don't be afraid to dance with the demons, Miss Tana. But when you don't like the music, stop dancing. Tana forced herself not to run.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Yes. Oh my gosh. That's cool. I'm just kind of reveling in that right now. Renee, I'm gonna pass it to Renee because I need a moment.
It's interesting because they're both very different magics, but they do end up becoming friends.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So Renee, you had some questions, and I think Carole answered one of them already, but do you want to take over?
But I don't have them in front of me, so
So
I thought I was handing them off to you when I emailed them to you.
So Renee was going to ask you, Carole, if there was anything that surprised you when you were doing your research.
Yes, I was surprised by the voodoo, hoodoo, and Santeria, and it makes a lot of sense when you think it's all from cultures from the Caribbean and Haiti, and obviously these practices, they had their saints, santos, that they conform to the Christian saints so that they could practice. Even though they have these names, they also have San Cristobal, San Juan, all of these names that are used in public, but in their private rituals, they use these the names of the santos or the santes, who are their mystical creatures. And they have all different names. Some of them will have 5 and 10 different names. So someone who isn't involved in the practice has no idea. And that was done deliberately so that they could practice their own spirituality and still look like they were conforming to the people who were dominating them.
I have a question. Do the different names for the same saint, are they different aspects of that power?
Some of them have different aspects, and some of them have, I think some of just because they may be the same name, it's a little different from a different country or commonwealth. And some of them are they do have different aspects.
Wow.
It's very complex. The books are huge, and depending upon where, which culture you're looking at, they can have totally different aspects, but they pretty much have the same traits and personalities.
So did you spend a lot of time trying to dig into the books in addition to learning from people?
Yes, I in fact, my husband was actually even buying me a lot of Christmas presents and birthday presents about books about Santeria, spiritistas, and as well as just the informal learning, but reading a lot about it and trying better to understand it. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Cool. And again, plus most of these practices came from island nations, so they were in different islands, and there wasn't any communication between them. So of course that you rode your kayak over to one island, and you brought a piece there, and you got a piece back, and that's why I think it's so patchwork from where you're practicing.
Wow.
You have
Cool.
Voodoo and Santeria on the other. There's a lot of and there's Palo, which is actually in South America, which tends to be the most violent.
Huh. So you said you have a lot of research to do for your second book. Is it more reading? Do you have like more trips to go on or people to see or?
More trips to do. This one, actually, I have spent quite a bit of time in Puerto Rico for medical missions, really. And when I'm there, I get to talk to a lot. I actually go out to, like, went out to the national forest before the hurricane destroyed it, and I was actually there, and I was sort of trying to feel the spirits in the park itself. And so yeah, I do that. When I go, I just sort of immerse myself. Sometimes I'll take a drive when I get some time off to a place, and I just kind of just walk around, and it's practiced much more openly there.
Yeah.
So that you walk around and you see a lot of altars, and and again, you have to be careful. You just can't walk into a little village and say hi. But I was there, after the hurricanes, and it was a medical mission. So it was a little easier for me to get involved and talk to people because they needed help badly. And I go into homes and I can actually see the altars, and I see how people integrate all this into their life. So it just makes it more real.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Does the story from book one continue into book two? Is it like a full thread? Are there
Yes,
new?
it continues. It's left sort of on a cliffhanger.
I love you.
Rival gangs, and like I said, I've got the first third of it written, and yeah, she's got a murder charge. Yeah, there's lots of stuff going on. She's going to go to prison, possibly. I have to figure out all this, and I worked in the courts too, so so I have been in the Bronx County Courthouse far too many times, and so some of those scenes are totally true, and there are several things in the book that really happened.
Very
There's some
cool.
quakes and hurricanes and things like that. Some of the courtroom scenes they're not verbatim what happened, but or people saying, I said, no, that really happened. So that's the kind of research I have to do, which is
Yeah. It's time intensive.
It makes your world very real.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize who come from the outside that even genres you wouldn't expect, like urban fantasy, actually do involve a lot of research. Even creating your own worlds at the same time, there's research that we do. That's impressive. Did you know when you started writing that you were going to be writing a series?
No,
Okay.
I didn't. And this book was already very long. This is a really long book. And I said, no, you got to stop it. You can't just keep going, and I have to divide it up. And I have three sort of outlined. I'm not really sure I have enough for a third, but when you start writing, sometimes you definitely wind up having room for a third. I just have to suck up the energy to just go back out there, down the streets a little bit, and absorb more information.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Now, Carole Ann, you had questions for Renee. Do you have them with you?
Not.
If not, I can.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'll ask on your behalf. And for our audience, it's just something fun we like to do, because sometimes our authors and our editors, we communicate through email, but we don't necessarily get to do the talk, like chatting about the industry. So this is fun. So Renee, one of the questions that Carole had for you is it hard to edit fiction that is not in the genres you normally write?
Yeah, which is why Cassie and I decided a long time ago that I'm kind of her fantasy sci-fi editor. I don't do a lot of contemporary or historical, because fantasy and sci-fi and urban fantasy, the world building is so intense. It's a much more specialized genre. So
Yeah.
I've just kind of niched myself into that. Which is why I asked Carole all these world building questions until she was just like, stop.
So my question then for you, Renee, is it difficult to jump from one author's universe to another? Because there's certainly common phrases like werewolves. Everybody knows generally what a werewolf is, but every book's universe is different, right? So how do you cope with those different universes?
I never edit more than one book at a time.
Okay.
The way Cassie's schedule is set up is you finish one book and move to the next and then move to the next, and that helps keep it. I do not multitask between books because that does get confusing.
Yeah.
So I just do them one at a time, and that way, you know, one's done and then I can move on to the next world, and they're all unique. And even like in Carole's case, she's got a world immersed on top of another world.
Yeah.
So that's always fun. So she's got, you know, multicultural contradictions within her own world. So each author does that, and so that just keeps it fresh, and you just have to be really fluid and flexible and ask questions when you get lost until the author is just like, please stop.
Do either Carole or Renee, do you keep like a book Bible, which is, I think that's what it's called, where you keep all your notes for, do you end up, Renee, keeping one for your authors?
I really don't, because I've got email folders with all of their names on
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
And so every time we send stuff back and forth with attachments, I have a copy. So anytime Cassie has a question, if there's a dispute between author and editor, and she's like, okay, what was said, what happened, can I see, you know, the second round of edits? I have all those documents.
Oh, smart.
Yeah. Now I have book Bibles for my own books, because series do tend to get really bulky. Just to warn you, Carole, the longer your series gets, the more complicated and the harder it is to go from book 1 to book 7. So that is going to be something I would recommend if you haven't done it yet, just to keep that all straight.
It's weird the stuff you put in there, like mine, because I get very specific with color names because colors have meanings in my book. I now have a chart of what I've called things. So like if I've got cherry red somewhere, I will never use cherry red again unless there's a reason. It's weird the stuff you put in your book Bible. Carole, do you have like a hard cover? Do you just in your computer or in your head?
It's in my head. It's in my head. I actually don't think there's too much. I mean, I spend so much time researching that I have a lot of research material. I don't necessarily, you know, and I have all those, I mean, full those articles or folders or notes that I've written to myself so I can find it. And I have the books and I have the little papers. You should see the books. They're just got stickies all over the place that I can find them if I need them. You know, so where did you come up with this? So I don't necessarily have any files, but lots of, I'm not a outliner. I just have everything in one big pile and I pretty much can find everything.
That's cool. So when you wrote the book, did you outline the plot at all, or did you just start writing? Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Not an outliner at all. I just write. And sometimes when I get stuck, I just stop and I go to something else I'm thinking about in some scene, maybe in the beginning or maybe at the end, and I write that. And sometimes when I write, like the beginning and the end, the middle fills itself in because I said, okay, I have to get to this point. So how am I, or I have to backtrack to figure out. This one actually pretty much wrote pretty consecutively. And then there were a lot of scenes where I had to do a lot of research. So I left those and I stopped and I did the research and then I went back. And sometimes let me just write something else first and then I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I'm very it takes me a very long time to write something.
Well, yeah, if you've got a lot of research to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I know some people say to just kind of write, and then, because I research as I write. And I know a lot of people say just, either skip it, or I can't do that. I go down the rabbit hole until I figure it out. And I usually find so much inspiration too when I research, because I write historical. I don't know if you do that, Carole. I write historical fantasy, but yeah. And I'm like you too with the books. Like, I've started doing reviews online of different books that I have, and oh my God, the stickies everywhere. So, all right, I gotta stop talking because we're running short on time now. Back to Carole, and I'm gonna ask one more question. I'm gonna skip ahead. So her question for you, Renee, was patience and persistence, as well as accuracy and veracity, are essential for editors. How did you develop your skills?
Well, I am an example of what not to do as a writer. I am guilty of editing as I write. I am a total
Same.
plotter.
No.
And I
answer.
I'm totally writing and polishing simultaneously. So when I submit to editors and when I submit my queries, that's one of the things Cassie said right away was, you send me such clean work. So she basically made the suggestion that I take the editor test, and Sevannah was actually one of my first authors, and she was also an editor. So she kind of mentored me, because I sent her my first edits and she was like, what is this? So Sevannah had to teach me. And then it's just learn as you go. I'm a huge Josh Gates fan, and these archaeology, adventure kinds of shows, they have something called LiDAR, which they use to find old ruins in like jungles, where it strips away layer by layer. So when I edit, I decide to focus on one thing, and I go through the whole book and edit that. And then I go through and pick something else, and then I go through the whole book and do that. Because if you try to do everything together all at once, you miss stuff.
Right.
So I just do my LiDAR and go through it, and then my authors end up with 80 million comments, and yeah. I have a lot of comments in my edits.
Do you send the book all at once then? Do you send like the full edit all at once?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to ask one more question for you, Carole, because I saw that in March 2023, when we were recording, you participated in an online book fair. And I thought some of our authors in our audience would be interested in learning about, how that works, what book fairs are. Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I believe that was with the Strong Women, Strange Worlds.
Yes.
Okay. I recommend that organization for anyone who writes in the fantasy, science fiction genres. And they have events every couple of weeks. They have readings and things like that, and have just get together. And it's an interesting group of people, and I love to hear the stories, and there's a good networking component to that within the group. I also recommend the Broad Universe membership for female and non-binary writers. It's a good support group. They do a lot of readings and promotions regionally. It's a nationwide. They have chapters in many states, and again, female and non-binary writers, but those are two very good venues to just network as well as to market.
Very cool. So then for the book fair itself, because it looked like was there like a scheduled event that you were part of?
Yes, it was a scheduled event, and I had a Facebook a party, I guess it was, planned for a specific hour. And, you know, I had, you know, a reading and just question and answers. And of course there were glitches with that. So, but I did the presentation, and then I got some feedback afterwards. But again, there's just a lot of opportunities, and it's just the networking. It's just getting to know other people, reading different things and hearing different things. And it's being an author can be lonesome. So it's good to get, especially during COVID when you really couldn't go anywhere or do anything. At least you could have these meetings and actually talk to people and feel like you were really involved with them.
Yeah.
So good.
That's great. Where can we find you online?
Probably the best place is Facebook, caroleannmoleti.com. And I have nonfiction and fiction. And Twitter at C Moleti. And I'm experimenting with Instagram. It's not going well, but I'm working on it.
Same.
So yeah, and yeah, I'm around. Facebook, pretty much everything is posted to Facebook and Twitter. So
okay, cool. Well, we will put everybody's website in the comments below so you can find us. Carole, as she alluded to, we didn't get to talk about, has other books. This is not her only book. So make sure you check out her website. And please don't forget to like this video, subscribe or follow, depending on where you're watching us. Carole, happy book birthday.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. It's been a lot of fun, despite all of the technological
crazy. I know.
stuff. I mean, I'm sitting in the McDonald's parking lot for like 3 hours now.
Finally, you can go enjoy your special coffee and relax now. So,
thank you very much.
thank you. Everybody have a great day.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.